Let's see here. Oh, I have these set up. You know, they're around my bed. They're not convenient. They're not convenient at all. These are the guppy fry. I've just basically been taking them out of the pond outside every once in a while. You know, called bi-weekly. Whenever I see a bunch of little fry up there and I know that they've had another spawn, I'll go out there and scoop up, 30, 50 of them or something. And I've given at least 30 to my brother. So these guys are starting to get some pretty cool patterns on them too. The females are kind of bland, they're yellow, but we got these guys in there that are just very pretty. Let's see if I can look at that guy. So they're looking nice. They're looking nice. So I'm gonna take those and I'll cull those guys out slowly. But I got some what is it? Vallisneria in the back there. Got it from PetSmart, and it had all these little saplings on there. So I got my brother one too, and it's been in the tank. I mean, it hasn't even been 10 days, so it's kind of still adjusting, but it should be doing pretty good. You know, it's got some. The soil in this tank is kind of low. It's kind of getting eaten through. It started with some white and blue rocks, and then I added fluval stratum, and then I've also added sand and aragonite on top of that, and it kind of gets more sandy as you go to the right here. But it's all pretty much settled now. It could just use another layer of sand or another layer of gravel, but if it's a root system, it should have plenty to work with. So, yay. That is a 10 gallon. Next to it, we have my 30 gallon. And this has my neon tetra, or not my neon, my serpe tetras and a couple skirt tail tetras in here. It also has a bunch of pothos up top. This tank has been like the easiest tank I've ever had in my life. Some Java moss, some pothos. These guys will be fine for months. Yeah, I probably changed. I do one water change, a 20 to 30% water change monthly at best in this tank. So I don't really, yeah. The thing about water changes though is that it's kind of hard for me to figure out how much water I actually put through this tank, because I kind of have a process at this point of moving the water around from tank to tank. So this is essentially the first stop of the water purification journey. This is the most resilient tank I have, and I've noticed that by putting water into this tank, 10 to 15%, the water can be foul, and this tank will just scrub it clean. There is some duckweed up here, but it's mostly pothos. I am trying to grow out some duckweed here. I got some DIY ammonium nitrate, and I mixed that with some water, so I'm trying to get this to take off. I also have some duckweed over here. For here, it wasn't doing so well, but that's because in this tank there were 2 skirt tail tetras, and in this tank I actually also have 2 skirt tail tetras, which I'm trying to breed. There's the male, and then there's the female. That having the flame moss plus this Java fern root ball would be enough for them to kind of lay their eggs on it. I think I need to get a spawning mop in there, because I'm not sure this is working. But, you know, that's what they're in here for. I have my big gulp cup back there. It has an air stone with some biomedia in there, just churning away. So we keep moving on. Here is a new addition to the room. It's a 10 gallon. This is a 5 gallon. I think it's a 5 gallon. It's a weird dimension. These were all the inlers that were the natural coloration. So the orange and the blue with the dot, I'm just taking all those and they're going into that tank. And so whenever I need a wild inler strain, you know, I can just basically grab one of these guys and spruce up the genetics. Right now there are only 5 of them in there, and there is no airstone or pump on that tank. It is just a light with some pothos and a bunch of Riccia fluentins, which takes over a tank like wildfire. I mean, it's kind of impressive. But they seem to like it. They're doing all right. Pothos up top. I modified this housing actually. Well, my brother put this Velcro here, but there is there's a sheath, a metal sheath that was used to, I guess, prevent the light bulb from melting the plastic. That was in the old world, because I don't know if you can tell, this tank is rather old, where iridescent bulbs were standard, and now we have LEDs. So we put a Alexa Bluetooth light bulb in here, and not only can you adjust the schedule, which right now we just have it on all day because I do it manually, but you can set it on a timer. You can change the color. It can be blue, green. So essentially this tank has full RGB capabilities. Just throwing that out there. It's really funny what you can do with those Alexa light bulbs. This is another green water tank. It's just in front of a window. It has a little pothos in there. There are snails in there. This tank was inside a grow tent, and it got completely algae ridden, and then I took it out of the grow tent and I brought it in here. So it's coming back. I'm not going to bother changing the water. A lot of people are, I mean, I'm not going to put fish in this right now, but I probably could, even no matter what it looks like. All of this was algae, so instead of dumping all this water out and getting rid of it and doing all that, I'm just going to let the snails break it down naturally over time. This water that's in here will probably get pretty nutrient rich after a while, after all this algae starts to decay and rot. The good part about that is that most of my other tanks, like this one, they run nutrient deficits anyway, so the plants that are in here can only grow as fast as the waste that these fish produce. So when I add some nasty water like this back into this tank, because this is 30 gallons and this is 2.5, and this is just, you know, it's not that much water for this tank, I could actually reuse this water and scrub this tank, give this tank a little more nutrients and scrub it clean. The downside is that I have to make sure that the pH of this water and the GH of this water are not going to absolutely tank or affect the pH of this water and the GH of this water. However, that being said, it's all been on rainwater. That's rainwater. This is rainwater. Tanks only evaporate water over time. From what I have noticed, most of the times moving water from tank to tank to tank to tank, it never increases, or sorry, it never reduces the mineral content of the water because of evaporative losses at every single stage in the cycle, and plants absorbing the nutrients out of some of it. I haven't had a problem with it. You know, that's, you know, and I wouldn't dump 15 gallons of dirty water into a 30-gallon tank. Don't do that. You're going to kill your fish. But if you take a small amount of wastewater and cycle it back into a larger system, you're able to preserve some of that wastewater without just crashing your ecosystem. It's fun. It's nice. It's cool that all these tanks have been run off of rainwater now for months through this drought. Except for this tank, which I would like to introduce you guys to my new 55-gallon with a view straight out to the world. Pothos have been growing in it for a while. I got some sweet gum tree seed pods in there, you know, just some bacteria that's forming. There is an air stone, it's not on right now. And more Java fern, more Riccia, more flame moss, more limna minor, more guppy grass. there are the used sand from the old 10-gallon that was here. If you go back in my videos, you'll see that I had a 10-gallon deep sand bed. It was doing fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but since I got a new tank, I went ahead and just moved the substrate from this tank into this tank. So I haven't wiped it down or anything yet. My brother went out to where is it? Spring Hill. It was basically out in Westlake, and this person was just giving away this 55-gallon tank for free for anyone who wanted to come pick it up. So yeah, we got it. We got it back. We filled it up with water, and it holds water. So that was the cheapest 55-gallon tank I've ever gotten. It was free. Love saying that. I mean, so this tank was also a dumpster dive. This tank was free, and my brother gave me this tank. So I purchased this tank, that tank, and this tiny tank. But my brother gave me this tank. I got this tank out of the dumpster, and somebody was giving away this tank for free. So if you want fish, just look around. There are deals. There are people that constantly have tanks, and they get them, and then they don't want them, and then they get rid of them, and it's sad. But, you know, sucks for them. I'll take it. Around to the point of the whole video. This is the water system, okay? This is how I make my fish water, okay? See, it is slowed down. Whenever you make a brand new filter, it always goes really fast at the beginning, and then after a while it slows down, and you start getting this really good filtration out of it. In here, there is this is just a turtle decoration on top to keep all the gravel down. So whenever you're pouring, it doesn't go everywhere. So this is just a water diffuser. It's plastic. So this part right here is all plastic, right? All that. Starting from here down, you know, is that like an inch or so? And this layer has been dissolving rather rapidly because of the distilled water that I've been putting in here. I have noticed that rainwater does not dissolve this substrate nearly as fast as distilled water. And I've been using distilled water from the AC on the side of the house. The rainwater, very close to distilled water, it just doesn't, for some reason, it just doesn't seem to be as acidic. I could probably do some testing and stuff. For whatever reason, the distilled water definitely seems to be dissolving this a lot faster. So I need to get some more aragonite and bring that back up to this thing, right? So it has a good 2 inches to go through. But it slowly goes through this aragonite, and it dissolves that, which is pure calcium basically. And then it hits a layer of sand at the very bottom, which is a good 2 to 3 inches of sand. And it's pure sand. You know, I rinsed it off, washed it off. And at the very, because if you can tell, this is a big water bottle I just cut the bottom out of. It has the funnel that, you know, goes to the other side. I shoved a bag of charcoal right in the end of that funnel. So it's a bag of charcoal, sand, and then aragonite on top. The aragonite adds calcium. The sand just gets out in those micro, you know, like tiny bugs and stuff you don't want in the water. It's just a fine mesh filter essentially, but it takes a long time. And then the charcoal at the very bottom is just there to purify the water, take out any toxins. And this whole filter you have to dump and clean, at least at the bare minimum, clean, remove the charcoal, which is in a bag thankfully, and replace the charcoal and add the clean substrate back in with more calcium. The sand shouldn't really dissolve, but you might need to add some more sand. The aragonite should be cleanable, but it will slowly wear out over time. So this setup does eat through substrate, is what I'm getting at, right? But here in the reservoir, it all drips down into this reservoir. In this reservoir, there's just about 15 gallons of good mineralized, more mineralized fresh water for a fish tank that is just slightly better than taking a jug of distilled water from the AC and pouring it directly into there. Because at least this way you get some of the macrobiome bacteria and stuff that forms on this, in the sand and all that. Kind of, if there was something toxic, hopefully something in here will get the brunt of it so that when you add it to the rest of your system, it's not that bad. This water in this system, I usually use this siphon. Hui. Hui. Oops. Boop. Put it in there. Okay. And you just, boosh, boosh, boosh. You suck it out, right? And it goes into this and fills this barrel up. Now, this isn't distilled water, but by running it through this filter, I am able to keep adding that calcium mineral content to it. I've done a lot with waterworks, and what the best thing I can say is that when you have water and it sits in one place for way too long, that's when you have problems. And I'm not saying this is like science, it's just my experience. But by taking the water out of this tank, filtering it through here, mixing it with distilled water, and then adding it into those tanks or that tank, and then just doing the same process again next week, but taking water out of these tanks, putting it in here, and then adding it to this tank, and then taking water out of this tank, putting it into here, and then adding it to that tank, keeping that water moving, I have yet to have as many problems as if I was just trying to maintain the water in this one tank. Right? Because essentially, if you think about it, I am the sump. Right? It's just a manual sump for them. Tetras, by the way, another reason that I like tetras, and Endlers for that matter, is because of their resilience to pH. They can tolerate such a low pH, and that is essential for when I'm using rainwater. If I was trying to keep a cichlid or something, I would probably not be able to use rainwater. At least not in this method. I would have to design an even better method to get a super calcium deposit. But since these are tetras, they like soft water and they don't like really hard water. They're just perfect for rain. They're just perfect for rainwater. So if you want, man, especially these white skirt tail tetras, people, they really don't understand that this is like, it's a pretty fish. That is, those white skirt tail tetras, it is so hard to see on camera, but they have this like pearlescent shine whenever they go through the light. So they're not colorful, but when they hit the light just right, they're ridiculously colorful. It's white, but it's a pearlescent white. It's a beautiful fish. Whereas the serpes are fun, they're red, but they're not the skirt tails. And also the skirt tails, because we can feed them. You're on camera, we can feed. Have great feeding action. Whenever they see that there's like food up in the water, they'll dart to the top of the water, and they'll literally just smash it. It's so great. Just give them a sec till they realize there's food there. Oh, he's realizing. We're going to get all the stuff floating through, and then they're going to be like, oh, that was really good. We're going to go get the stuff on the surface. These are, pretty much the same kind of, they're panfish, just little tiny tetra panfish. So think about like bluegill, even some cichlids, but, just think about them as like little tiny bluegill. But yeah. Oh, well, might as well feed the Endler tank. This tank, the Endlers, oh my god, or the guppies, you could sit here and give them food all day long, and they'll just eat every scrap of it. So, water filter done, tank theology done, head counts done. Y'all see what I got. You getting the goldfish going. You got these Endlers. There's a 55 gallon. This tank is gonna be sweet. This tank has been up, and I say up and running. It is currently using this 20-gallon pump, okay? Whisper Quiet Pro 20 or whatever. And it has been filtering this water. I say filtering because you can tell there's some microbiomage happening. That's why I got the pothos that were in this. That's why this is kind of, see how they're in clumps. So I took the pothos, clumped the small ones up, and then I took the big ones over here and threw them in the tank, and they're doing pretty good. But that's just to get the tank started, get all that bacteria that's on the roots and all in there. But yeah, you know, exciting times. Gonna figure out what I'm gonna put in this tank. It's gonna start with endlers. I'm gonna take those yellow endlers, and they're gonna have this whole tank. And I essentially want, I believe, is to get some kind of wooden structure that essentially comes up and out of the tank, and then have a light come down and have this be lit, and it's like the tank is exploding out, is basically what I'm going for. I'm not really particular about the fish in there, but the main thing I want is I want a jungle exploding out of this tank. I don't care what it looks like. So if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments. If you got plants that you know of that I could, plant down here, or even attach to the side and just let them grow out of the water. The whole goal of this tank is going to be to try to transform this tank into something like not a terrarium, but just a terrestrial landscape. I want this tank to be out of the water as much as it is the water, if that makes sense. Also, this paint is ugly and I want to hide it. So, yeah, more stuff, more updates. That's the water sitch. Gotta trim up some of these